Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It is great to have you here on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Friday?
I'm very happy it's Friday.
You always are.
It's a 3-day weekend.
Well, for me, it's a little bit longer how my classes panned out.
Really? You don't get
I get about
Monday off?
I get Monday off.
Well, that's okay. That's good.
I think I got like 6 days off. That's what I mean.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Monday, Thursday. We have the entire week off besides Thursday classes.
Good for you.
Yeah, I'm pretty fortunate here.
I'm happy to have Monday.
You know, everyone's happy to have Monday off. 3-day weekend, get to enjoy a little break during the wintertime. We have a great show to bring to you today. A lot of great topics from NBA to some firings to some trade rumors that fell through. There's a lot to talk about, but let's jump into the first topic of today's show, which is an interesting one. So we speculated not too long ago that potentially the Knicks could be, in store for LeBron James. And we also made the sort of guess that maybe the Warriors also could be a good fit. Well, it turns out that's actually the case. The Golden State Warriors did actually make a bid for superstar and future Hall of Famer, and a lot of people arguing the greatest of all time, LeBron James. Potentially was going to the Warriors. However, Rich Paul turned that down by saying LeBron James will remain loyal to Los Angeles, and that basically Draymond Green facilitated this trade, tried to get in contact with LeBron James, and Jeannie Buss said they were not going to get off him. Rich Paul said they weren't going to get off him. Rob Pelinka said they weren't going to get off him. So basically, LeBron James will remain in Los Angeles for the foreseeable future. And the Lakers recently even said that they are open to drafting Bronny in order to keep LeBron James on the Lakers. So I want to know, did the Lakers make the right move in keeping LeBron and not trading him away for whoever knows what the Warriors might give up? Was this a good move for the Los Angeles Lakers?
I think so, right? His stat line looks really good this year. I mean, you wouldn't know he was 39 years old. 34 minutes, 25 points a game, 52% from the field, 3-point range where he's not always been so great, almost 40%, 7 rebounds a game, I think
7.8 assists.
7.8 assists a game, too.
Yeah.
1.3 steals. I mean, those are all style. That's an all-style stat line, and it's LeBron James. So I think they made the right move to hang on to him.
I mean,
he may not want to have been traded anyway.
Of course he didn't want to get traded. He's got business there. Los Angeles. Yeah. It's above New York when it comes to mass media empires. He's got one there. I mean, if we talk about biggest brands in sports, Los Angeles is definitely one of the top premier cities in just the 4 major sports.
Do you think it's better than New York? You think it's higher than New York?
I mean, New York sports for the past decade or so have been extremely underwhelming. The Knicks, the Rangers, Islanders, you got the Jets, you got the Giants as well. The Giants made the playoffs in 2016, but in totality, the Nets also have been massive disappointments, especially, which we're going to get into in a couple minutes here. KD going to the Nets, that's probably the biggest failure and complete disappointment in maybe NBA history. You bring up a good number, though. The 39.5% three-point percentage is the second highest in his entire career, and he's shooting it at a clip which he hasn't done back then when he was, shooting very well from three.
Yeah.
Which is incredibly impressive for a guy, like you said, that is 39 years old. When it comes to if this would be a good move, and let's say hypothetically this trade did go through and they had to give up massive pieces, I don't think it's a good image for either player, whether it be LeBron James or whether it be Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. This is not the first time that LeBron James and the Warriors have been potentially thinking about teaming up. We heard several times how the one player besides Bronny that LeBron James wants to play with is Steph Curry. Now, they will probably in the Olympics, they'll play together there, but that is one of the only players LeBron James said that he wished he would play with. And unfortunately, at this current moment in time, that's not going to happen. But the image that this puts on both LeBron James and Steph Curry, and I think primarily in Steph Curry's case, because what did he do back in 2020? Was it 2022 when they beat the Celtics that everybody was criticizing him for? And you can't put him in the top 10 of greatest of all time players. It's because he got carried and he had these super teams and he brought in Kevin Durant and they won 2 chips there, and he could never carry the Warriors. They always talk about his finals MVP. because Andre Iguodala got the first one, KD got the other two, and lo and behold, he finally carries his way through those finals against those Boston Celtics and was able to get his first title, first NBA Finals MVP. But this has happened before. KD builds a super team with the Brooklyn Nets. You get James Harden, you get Kyrie, and you bring with Kevin Durant. How about this? The most recent one, Kevin Durant joining the Suns. At first, it was Chris Paul. It was Devin Booker. Now you get rid of Chris Paul, you keep Booker, and you add Bradley Beal. And then, of course, like I mentioned, Steph Curry. And then KD also joining the Warriors. It's a bad image to build these super teams through acquisitions. The only way that this could work where both images might be intact is if you all go to a neutral team. If Bronny, let's just say for all intents and purposes for this conversation, Bronny gets drafted by, I don't know, the Spurs or a bad team like the Detroit Pistons. And Curry and LeBron say, you know what? We had a great run with our teams. I want to play with Bronny and play with you. How about we both go join Bronny and let's say the Detroit Pistons? I don't think Curry would do that because I do think Curry will remain on the Warriors for probably till the end of his career. But I think the only way for LeBron James and Curry to team up where everyone's not going to be bashing them for making a super team is if they both go to some other team and they don't join each other's teams. Because if Curry goes to L.A., I guarantee you Golden State fans are not going to be happy because those teams have been at
Curry is never going to L.A., I don't think.
LeBron and Curry have been each other's throats in the NBA Finals for several years.
Yeah.
LeBron beat him in 2016.
I don't think the discussion of this trade is over. I mean, I think that could happen in the summer, perhaps. I think who is Bronny James going to be drafted by? That
Lakers
says where,
open the draft.
That says where LeBron James is going to be. Yeah. So, the Lakers, they may not be able to draft Bronny James. He may go very high in the draft.
And we mentioned that before. Yeah. If you're basically banking on the fact that LeBron really desperately wants to play with his son, so much so that you would overdraft him, then that's a decision. And I guarantee you it's going to be a desperate franchise. It's not going to be a franchise looking to win a title. It's going to be a franchise looking to put butts in seats and saying, can we get LeBron James? Okay, all we got to do is draft Bronny and hope he pans out okay. So be it. We'll draft him, and let's say he goes top 10 in the league. Or top 10 in the draft, rather. That is something a team may do just for the sake of bringing LeBron James in. I don't think it's a good idea personally because there is no real guarantee based on the fact how LeBron James has built up his reputation in Los Angeles. He brought a chip to L.A. I guarantee you he probably wants to stay in L.A. too. But that would be a scenario where LeBron James you're banking on LeBron James moving. I don't see that 100% if the Pistons draft Bronny James.
You know what? I think that a number of teams would think it doesn't make sense for us to do this unless they think Bronny James is going to be another LeBron James,
exactly.
Right? Because drafting Bronny James just to get LeBron James to come to you, LeBron James is going to be 40 years old.
And it's also not guaranteed that he would join a team that is bottom 5 in the league.
Yeah.
If you do decide to overdraft him.
But he said he wants to play with his son. So, that would
Could the Lakers trade for Bronny?
Could be. They'd have to give up quite a bit
exactly.
though, right? So, I think it's going to be very interesting. Going to be really interesting. How is Bronny James doing as a college player?
I'm not entirely sure.
I don't know.
But I mean, you don't hear much about it. Just you hear a lot about it. I never hear anything about him.
Is he a knockout in the
last time I saw what his rating was?
He plays for UCLA.
I saw he was a 3-star prospect. The last time I saw him, he was a 3-star prospect.
But he's playing, right? He's out there playing now.
Yeah.
So he plays for UCLA. Is that who he plays
USC?
For? USC.
Wow. And he had, what was it, cardiac arrest, so he didn't play for the very beginning of the year. He came back, and he hasn't played. And right now...
Yeah, cardiac arrest?
I believe so.
Oh, my God.
I believe so.
I'm sure I said let someone play basketball after that.
So here, for this article was written back in December 23. It's by Clutch Sports. They rank him in the top 10 to 20s of the NBA draft.
Okay.
So we'll have to wait and see what a team does. But this is more so for the Warriors, I would say, because both these teams are not great this season, 9th and 10th respectively when it comes to the Lakers and the Warriors.
Do you think the Warriors would draft Bronny James?
They could if they wanted.
Because that would be the way to get LeBron.
Right. And then you would also have to do the blending the new with the old. And I think a way you would do that is you let Klay Thompson walk. because we've seen a major regression in Klay Thompson's career after the Achilles injury.
Not lately.
Well, I mean, he had the 35-point game off
He
the
had
bench.
26 the night of the game before.
The fact that
it's a wake-up call. They benched him.
It has to be. It has to be.
It's a wake-up call. He's coming off the bench, and now he's saying, you know what? You made a mistake. I should be a starter.
Well, this was his first game off the bench since March 11th of his rookie year. So we're talking nearly 12 years ago at this point. He had 10 points in the first quarter, 17 in the first half, and 35 in the game, which was his season high.
He was lights out. I watched the highlights of that game, man.
Yeah. No, he
was not missing.
He took over that game, and Curry had a horrible game as well. So you have Klay Thompson stepping up big time. But Klay Thompson's making $43 million a year this season. He's not living up to that $43 million for this year number whatsoever. You got to get off him because what Klay Thompson's claim to fame was catch and shooting. He's not as efficient or effective with that. It's not as consistent. And not
great
only
defensive
that,
player.
And not only that, yeah, he used to be a great defensive player.
Not anymore.
Not so
the
anymore.
The injuries slowed him down.
The injuries, yeah, right, exactly. So I would let Klay Thompson go. You drafted his replacement, a more catch and shoot type of a guy that's developing into a Klay Thompson type role. Curry, surprisingly, I think, is still at the very top of his game for the most part. He does have his off games like last night, but in its totality, Curry has been phenomenal. Was he 35, 36 years old? He dropped a bunch of points recently. I forgot the exact number.
In the game against the Lakers, he had scored 46 points,
right.
A double overtime.
He was the first player in NBA history to score 7 3-pointers in each of those games. First player, 7 threes in each of the games, 3 games in a row. I mean, he's in the totality of this season has been absolutely incredible. This season, he's averaging 28 points a game with 4 boards and 5 assists. He's shooting 42% from 3. He's stayed consistent with the shooting. Now, it's a little bit down from years prior, but he's 35 years old. You're not going to ask the guy, just like LeBron James, you're shocked the fact that he's nearing a triple-double and shooting near 40% from 3 at age 39.
Yeah.
So for me, I get off Klay because his morality is low. He looks defeated. Maybe this is a wake-up call.
His morality?
Yeah. His
motivation.
Same thing.
Yeah.
The fact that we take a look at him in the post games, he looks like he's broken down, maybe into tears.
Yeah, well, he got 35 in the last game. Maybe he's turned the corner.
It's a wake-up call. Maybe it's a wake-up call. So
he keeps averaging over 20. He's going to be in there. They'll put him back in the lineup.
You think so?
Yeah. Well, he averaged like 21 last year, right? He was in the starting lineup all year.
Right.
Yeah. So if he can get back to that, then I'm sure they'll put him back in the starting lineup. But maybe he can play a little bit better defense.
Well, it's Steve Kerr. He made a horrible mistake. When they played in the Clippers, he had a horrible foul with like less than a minute left, and Steve Kerr was besides himself about it. Like, he's making just mental mistakes that he normally doesn't make. I don't know if he's getting in his own head. He did say, reportedly, that he's willing to take on a lesser role to remain with the Warriors next season. I'm assuming that also comes with a substantial pay cut, because I think that's the only way the Warriors
How old is he?
maintain. Klay Thompson, he is currently... he is 34 years old.
34, so he's no youngster either.
Right. So we'll have to wait and see. But it looks like LeBron James will remain with the Lakers for the foreseeable future. And you know what? LeBron James will get his little pleasure moment when he's playing with Curry in the Olympics. So maybe that'll satisfy his need to play with Steph Curry. All right, let's get into some other news. Let's go to the NFL now. So Steve Wilks, this is an interesting one. After he had a pretty good season as defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, and also with the Carolina Panthers as head coach 2 seasons ago, it looks like he's out of a job right now. Kyle Shanahan moved on from him a couple days ago, saying that it just wasn't the right fit when it came down to it. Now, there are a lot of question marks, as we brought up on our Super Bowl show on Tuesday, about some of the defensive play calling. And even at one point, Kyle Shanahan had to call a timeout because the defensive lineup was all out of whack and maybe too obvious for Mahomes just to dissect almost immediately. I want to know, do you think it was right that Kyle Shanahan decided to move off of Steve Wilks after only 1 season as the DC of the 49ers?
Well, I guess somebody had to take the fall for the 49ers losing the Super Bowl. And Steve Wilks was the first man up, and he was fired. And you can understand why, because the 49ers had the lead twice, once in the fourth quarter, once in overtime, and they could not stop Kansas City from driving down the field and scoring. And if they had, Steve Wilkes would still be the coach today.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. If they'd stopped them on 4th and 1 to win the Super Bowl, if they'd stopped that touchdown at the end to Harden and made the Chiefs kick a field goal and had a chance to drive down in sudden death and score a field goal even to win the Super Bowl, I think that Wilkes would still be employed.
Someone had to be moved, I feel. And, of course, just because the offense, you can say, oh, Brock Purdy, second season, in the Super Bowl, 255 yards, no turnovers, CMC, 160 total yards and a touchdown. It can't be the offense, so it's the defense. So, in that regard, Steve Wilkes was used as sort of the scapegoat. And I could actually understand some of that because and even the broadcast pointed out, they kept playing this 5 defensive back coverage where the entire middle portion of the field, there's just a line within the 5-yard range, was completely open for that entire, I think it was the last drive before the overtime, or maybe it was in overtime. They kept playing this 5-high coverage, which made no sense because Mahomes was literally just picking it apart. In this entire game, the Kansas City drives, the first 9 drives in the Super Bowl, it amounted to 6 points for Kansas City. In the final 4 drives, it was the remaining 19 points. So I don't know if the defense was gassed. I don't think it was gassed as much as it was just completely outmatched and it didn't seem like they still had the same drive. I don't know if it was play call. It looked like it was play calling just because the fact that you had the horrible formation, and Kyle Shanahan, like I mentioned in the opening, he had to burn a timeout because the defensive lineup was so poor.
Yeah, well, they played fantastic in the first half.
They did.
Right? They only gave up 3 points. So, it was second half. Again, one thing I said in the last show, there's a long break there between the first and the second half because it's a Super Bowl and you have Usher out there dancing around. Right? So, they sat for a long time. They came out flat in the third quarter. They didn't score any points. It took them a while to get going. They did score 9 points in the fourth quarter, but it was the defense was nowhere near what it was in the first half. And I guess I thought it was because they were gassed and because of that lag. But the lag time, that's a coaching issue. And that's where the coaches got to step up. I didn't really think that much about whether Wilkes bore much of the blame here. But now that I think about it, maybe he does. He is culpable here. And the 49ers' defensive lapses in the fourth quarter and in overtime.
This was shocking. So Nick Bosa in the post game, so not when Steve Wilkes was fired, in the post game, he said, and I quote, the zone read got us a couple times. We could have been more prepared there. We have to know in crucial situations who is going to have the ball, and obviously it's him, I assume when he's talking about the 4th and 1. He had to scramble down the middle on that last drive. So this is the big one here. We could have been more prepared. That's on coaching. That's on Steve Wilkes. If you don't have your defense prepared to face a team like Mahomes in the Super Bowl, the biggest game of the year, that's about coaching. It just seemed like the 49ers in totality didn't know what was going on because you also had the overtime rules that apparently nobody understood on the 49ers side. Everybody on the Chiefs seemed to get it, or at least everyone who was in that crucial situation, coaches and Mahomes. But defensively, the 49ers, Nick Bosa, offensive, Kyle Juszczyk, you have all these players on the 49ers saying, yeah, we didn't know what the rules were. They changed. That's coaching. That's preparation.
Yeah. I'm not so sure that not knowing the overtime rules are that big an issue for the players out on the field. They're out there to make the plays that are called, right? The defensive coordinator calls a play.
Right.
You got to do your best to execute the play the way you're told to do it. It's not so much knowing what the time on the clock is or where you are on the field. The play is called. You just try to execute it, right? Same on offense. Now, maybe the quarterback, he's got to know where you are time-wise and that. But The other players they know what their job is, and they need to do their job.
Well, I think in this situation, Mahomes knew exactly what he was doing. He just let the clock run. And I'm sure it was like 49ers like, okay, wait, we're up. We might win. If they didn't know exactly the fact that it just goes
talking about in overtime.
Overtime, right.
In overtime, it
just
didn't
goes to the
matter.
next quarter.
They were just going to go to the next quarter, right?
But if the defense is like, okay, we're winning, Mahomes is running the clock down, we're still winning. Is it going to be game over? You're not entirely sure what the hell's going on.
That's a good point.
And you just let him drive down because the clock keeps ticking. Maybe you're thinking, oh, we're about to win. If we just let the clock keep ticking, we're going to win the game. But, and also, they did get cooked in the second half against Mahomes, and that's why Bosa, I'm sure, said we could have been more prepared against the zone read.
Yeah.
And speaking about Nick Bosa, there was one play I think it was the 4th and 1, and I might have mentioned it. Mahomes had the read option where he took it himself. Bosa just completely disregarded Mahomes, who had the ball in his hand. He ran right for the running back. Didn't even realize that Mahomes had the ball.
Yeah,
just tunnel vision on the running back.
That was a mistake. That was obvious mistake.
No one's expecting Mahomes to do a read option.
They should have had 2 spies on Mahomes on that play, right? I mean, he ran through a hole that was wide enough to drive a truck through.
Right.
Yeah, it was. He easily got the first down, and everyone knew. I knew. You knew.
Yeah.
He was going to run the ball, and he wasn't going to hand off the ball. Or he wasn't going to pass the ball.
Right.
Maybe he might have looked to Kelsey, but Kelsey was in motion the other way. So Mahomes went right. Kelsey went left.
Yeah.
And the hole was wide open.
Put the game in someone else's hands. Yeah. The entire world knew Mahomes, whether it be a QB sneak, a scramble out, or it will be a pass that Mahomes scrambles on, there is no shot. No matter how much confidence you say you have in your players. When it comes down to a 4th and 1 where it's you get this conversion or the game is over, you know for a fact it's going to be Mahomes. Mahomes will be the one making the play. And yet Nick Bosa decided, you know what, let me get the running back. Who, by the way, the 49ers did a great job stopping the run just outright. But I think everybody knew Mahomes was going to try to make a play.
Throughout the season, the 49ers weren't that good against the run, actually. So, they were lights out in the first half. They blew it in the second half. I guess some of that you put on the coaches. I do think being so flat in the third quarter, and that's on the coaches. And then in the fourth quarter, recovering to score 9 points, but giving up so many to Kansas City and letting them tie the game there. It's and then in overtime, just marching right down the field.
Yeah,
that was
I would say just the lack of preparation.
And you'd expect more, actually, from the 49ers.
Absolutely.
Defense, right? They had one of the better defenses in the league.
The amount of talent you have, and in the playoffs, like you mentioned, they just got out. They got dominated on the run game.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones, phenomenal game. David Montgomery, Jamison Williams, even the wide receiver, he had a 42-yard run. Jahmyr Gibbs, phenomenal game. Now, in the Super Bowl...
They were lucky they won that game.
Absolutely.
They were lucky. The coaching was a problem in that game for the Lions.
I would agree with you there, but you got to have a scapegoat. You got to have someone to take the fall. You're not going to put it on your second-year quarterback who went to an NFC Championship and a Super Bowl in his first 2 years.
And got you the lead in the fourth quarter and in overtime twice, and you couldn't hang on to it. You lost.
I still believe the fact that you're going for 3rd and shorts now, whether it's what Kyle Shanahan's drawing up on the call sheet, what he's telling Purdy to do. But there were a lot of opportunities, 3rd and 2nd and shorts, and you're passing the ball. I'll also say, offensive game call, you go out in the third quarter, you pass 6 times. You pass 10 times in the third quarter. You pass 10 times, complete 4 of those for 25 yards, and only run it 3 times. You're not maintaining tempo. You're not maintaining time of possession.
The Chiefs, they ran up over 400 yards of offense, so that's got to tire the defense out. I do think it was partially that the defense was gassed at the end.
Very well could be. I want to get into this topic next before we go to break. So, a lot of people bash me for my Justin Fields take about how, Schefter said he can go for a 1. I said he's looking more like a 3. Well, we have some news. After the Steelers released Mitch Trubisky, it looks like Justin Fields is now the favorite to be the next Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback. Some of those odds are, I'll bring them up here. So Steelers are the favorite. Then Chicago, Atlanta, the Patriots, and Denver round out the top 5. Now, the gap between New England at 4 and Denver at 5 is plus 500 to plus 1,200. But the gap from, Chicago, Atlanta, New England, 300, 450, 500. So those teams are very close, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers are minus 120. So it looks like, and according to Albert Breer, like the lower third says, he thinks the Steelers are the ideal landing spot for Justin Fields. I want to know, do you agree with this? Or do you agree the fact that Justin Fields would be a great fit in Pittsburgh with Mike Tomlin?
I do think that it's potential there. I think Mike Tomlin's a great coach. I think he's better than Eberflus and whoever the offensive coordinator was in Chicago.
It was Luke Getsy, I believe his name is.
And who's this OC in Pittsburgh these days?
They fired, I forgot, Matt Canada. I think it's Arthur Smith, Falcons or former
Arthur
Falcons.
Smith is going to be their OC. So, Pittsburgh is a very quality organization. Mike Tomlin never had a losing season. I think it'd be a fresh start for Justin Fields with a team that has a winning culture and a winning attitude. I think that Justin Fields has the talent. It's been inconsistent, and I think that Mike Tomlin could help him find consistency. I do think that would be a good fit.
When it comes to the Steelers,
I'm not sure what they have to give up to get him. We'll talk about that next, but go ahead.
So for me, I'm not backing down. I've defended Justin Fields partially throughout the NFL season. But then you look a little bit deeper, and I decide, let's look a little bit deeper. So normally when you head in, especially as a young quarterback, you get anxious when, it's early in the game, first quarter, you're finding the tempo of things. You got to find what works within the game, whether it's not, okay, we're going to have the deep shot a lot. Okay, we're going to dink and dunk our way. You got to get a feel for the game. So normally you start off poor, and then as the game progresses, you get better and better and better. When it comes to Justin Fields, he gets worse and worse and worse as the game progresses. Justin Fields has the worst fourth quarter quarterback in the entire league. Completion percentage 51.1, dead last. Passer rating 53.4, dead last. And this is this past season. Giveaways 9, dead last. Not only that, it gets much worse. And people are going to say, well, those numbers are because of his poor defense and the fact that his offensive line is terrible, that he plays bad. Well, take a look at this. When trailing, his passer rating is 80. Not great, not really horrible. When tied, his passer rating is 88. A little bit better. And when ahead, it's 60. When he's winning in the fourth quarter, he has a passer rating of 60. How does that work? How do you get worse in the fourth quarter when you're leading? And not only that, what I've seen a lot of people comment on one of our we did a clip and a topic not too long ago. We defended Justin Fields, and someone made the right point about the fact that his turnovers are a main issue, especially in fumbling the ball. So if you look at his numbers, since he entered the league back in 2021, he leads the NFL in fumbles with 38. Trevor Lawrence is second with, I believe, 33. He's turnover prone, has a hard time completing passes, and as the game progresses, he gets worse and worse and worse. And the fact that he's going to go into Pittsburgh and try to fight with Kenny Pickett, who I coined the name Kenny Pick-em-off, have yet to hear anyone give him that nickname. I could be wrong. Someone may have beat me to it. But I'm going to say right now, unless someone else corrects me, that I came up with Kenny Pick-em-off. He has to go into the Pittsburgh Steelers potentially and try to fight for the QB1 job. I don't think it's a good job to start with.
What about the other quarterback in Pittsburgh there?
What? I just said Kenny Pickett.
No, the another one.
What? Mason Rudolph?
Mason Rudolph.
They're probably going to get rid of him.
Mason Rudolph played well.
I would
down
start
the
Mason
stretch.
Rudolph off both of them.
Yeah.
Because he played well when he was in there last year.
So he's going to have a chance to win the
I'm pretty sure they're going to get off of him. Even though I think that's a bad idea.
I don't think they will. I think they're going to keep him. I think he has what's his contract? It's a pretty reasonable contract, I think.
Well, I mean, he's not going to get paid large sums of money.
I mean, he's still on his first contract.
Mason Rudolph he is a unrestricted free agent this offseason. So the Steelers would need to sign him. I don't know if they will. He was a 3rd-round pick. I'm not sure if they will. He's 28 years old. But if
he's 28?
He's 28 years old. If you're going to go in and decide to trade for Justin Fields, and let's say you do give up a 1st-round pick, which I think is a complete overpay for a guy who's 40 touchdowns, 30 picks, and is 10-28 as a career record, that's horrible. You tell me what quarterback is 10-28 in his career. He nearly has a 1-to-1 interception to touchdown ratio, and as the game progresses, also leads the league in fumbles since entering the league. And as the game progresses, gets worse and worse and worse. And when it matters most, when you're up winning in the 4th quarter, you have a passer rating of 60, and that's a 1st-round pick. He's great on YouTube. He's great on YouTube. Running around, he's great.
I think he can be had for a 2nd-rounder.
I don't think he's
he can be had for a 2nd-rounder. And I do think that some of his 4th quarter poor performance is not all on him. I think that's on the scheme.
You think it's on the
coaching?
Scheme?
Yeah.
Well, people get him a receiver. Darnell Mooney,
they got him a receiver.
He got him, DJ Moore, and yet he still struggled against poor defenses. Minnesota, he struggled with. Now, they won the game, but it was a 2-point game. Struggled against Detroit, who had one of the worst pass defenses. Struggled against them. Now, they did win the 2nd game, but still, he had his struggles. The numbers say that he didn't play particularly well. 57% completion percentage. Fumbling. That's what Justin Fields' career has amounted to so far, and just incompletions all around. His career completion percentage is 60.3. He doesn't complete passes. Nearly has a 1-to-1 touchdown interception ratio.
I would say his first couple of years, he didn't have much of a receiver core to throw to. They've improved that in the last 2 years with DJ Moore there.
Mainly this year, with DJ Moore.
Was DJ Moore there just this past year?
Because it was the Bryce Young trade. That,
so
he
3 years, he didn't really have much. I mean, they had N'Keal Harry on there. They picked him up.
Man, Patriots fans know a thing or two about N'Keal Harry. But if he goes over to the Steelers team, right, you have Najee Harris, you have George Pickens, you have Deontay Johnson. You could team up with Allen Robinson again. He was there last year. I don't know if 10-7.
That's a better crew.
It's a better crew, but think about it. Kenny Pickett, who was a budding prospect when he was drafted, this offense was anemic through most of the season. We saw at times where Kenny Pickett would have trouble scoring touchdowns on a team with George Pickens, and also the personalities, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, they have issues. There's some serious personality issues within Pittsburgh with a head coach like Mike Tomlin, which in my mind, you think of Mike Tomlin and his coaching, I don't think he would let that slide. Yet this season, George Pickens went off. You had Deontay Johnson who was frustrated. You had players who were not happy with their roles on the team and the amount of success or lack thereof of this team. There is talent, though. You even have your tight end, Pat Freiermuth. You have pieces. The offensive line could be improved, definitely. I think the defense
is
still
good.
The defense for me is average.
As long as T.J. Watt is healthy.
T.J. Watt needs to be healthy, yeah.
They lose every game when he's not in there.
So they went 10-7 last year. If Justin Fields, and let's say they trade a 1st-round pick, let's be conservative, not, follow Adam Schefter to the moon about this. Let's say they decide to trade Justin Fields for a 2nd-round pick. You go from 10-7 with Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitch Trubisky to what?
I think you still win about 10 games.
You're not moving the pin.
I don't think it would be much better, actually.
So then why would you trade for him at all then? You would give up a 2nd-round pick to yield the same result. Keep that 2nd-round pick, develop your defense better, develop your offensive line better.
Well, I think they got lucky to win 10 games this past year.
I would agree with you.
I don't think Kenny Pickett is the answer. I think their prospects with Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph as quarterback next year would be less than 10 wins.
You think so?
Yeah, I don't think
they
went
would. 7-5 with him last season on 62% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns, 4 picks. While Mason Rudolph, 3-0, 74% completion percentage, 719 yards, which is 179.8 yards per game, 3 touchdowns, no picks.
No, he played very
I would
well.
start Mason Rudolph off both those guys.
So would I.
Just based on how he performed last season.
Well, I might. I think that.
He showed production.
Do you think that we talk a lot about game managers and real quarterback make something happen talent, and some quarterbacks are pigeonholed as game managers, and others are considered
game changers,
game changing talent, right? What do you think Mason Rudolph would be classified as?
He'd be a game manager.
Yeah, right. And what do you think Justin Fields would be classified as?
Well, on the Bears, are we basing off Cam Newton's criteria?
Just based on what people think. I mean, a lot of people picking him to be the MVP last year at the beginning of the season. So they look at him as a talent, that somebody who can be game changing talent.
Because he can run the football.
He's shown some times when he does look like that kind of player.
He did have a streak
he's
of
very
like 3
inconsistent.
games.
I would say that he's very inconsistent, and your stats show that he gets worse as the game goes on. That's not good. So you're probably right. He's not a first round. The Steelers don't have to worry about trading a first rounder to get him. If the Bears want to trade him, they can probably get him for a second.
And
what do you think about some of these other teams? Other teams. I don't think the Patriots are going to try to get him.
Well, I think when it comes to the Steelers, Arthur Smith, Falcons, everybody thought you go out and get a mobile quarterback like Anthony Richardson. You try to go get Lamar Jackson. Well, what I'm saying is that Arthur Smith developed that offense where it was very run heavy, and that's why people were saying Lamar Jackson to the Falcons. Oh, they should draft Anthony Richardson at number 8 last season. You wanted to get that more mobile offense. You bring him to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's probably where some people were like, oh yeah, Justin Fields. At least Albert Breer was talking about Mike Tomlin and his connection with Ohio State, something along the lines of that. But you want to go down some of these teams? Because I don't think a lot of these teams really have a shot.
I one more point. Just one more point.
Sure.
Okay, on the Steelers. The reason they like Ohio State, it's in Ohio. Cleveland's in Ohio, right? So a lot of people in Ohio loved Justin Fields when he played at Ohio State.
Yeah.
So it's a draw for the fans to come to see him play in Pittsburgh. So that's part of it, I think.
So the Steelers are minus 120. In my mind, I don't know how the team you're currently on is not favored. Is that because everybody's expecting them to draft Caleb Williams?
Yeah.
Probably. The Falcons, they have a position to draft. They have a shot at getting one of the top quarterbacks. Whether you're going out and I
what
think,
number are they at?
I think Drake May is going to fall. I believe they're number 8. I'll look at the draft order right now, but I would say I think Drake May is going to fall. And
why?
I mean, first of all, his numbers. He went to UNC. He didn't have a great touchdown interception ratio. The passing yards were not up there. So I just think that Jaden Daniels, unfortunately, because we're going to do our mock drafts.
He's going to Washington
in a couple months. My guess would be he's going to go to Washington.
Then who do the Patriots pick?
Then they would probably go either Drake May or, as Warren Sharp pointed out, he has the Patriots drafting Marvin Harrison. Which, once again, I predicted about week 8 or 9.
Bailey Zappi or
Mac
Jones.
Who knows? They may get one in free agency or use one of their later picks to draft a lower-tier quarterback. Who knows?
I was surprised the Patriots didn't pick Josh McDaniel for their offensive coordinator.
I don't know why
because they could. He was Mac Jones played well.
They're moving forward here. They're moving forward. They're not looking back in the past. That's why. By the way,
we'll see how forward they go with
this first time head coach, first time OC with them,
first time everybody there.
Yeah,
now.
The first time they've had a GM in how long?
Who is the GM now?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm not entirely sure. But I don't think Pittsburgh would be a horrible match because you have Arthur Smith, and maybe that offense would go from anemic to enticing, maybe. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, what I saw, the last game of the season sealed it in my mind that Justin Fields is not a phenomenal quarterback. You go against Green Bay's passing defense, which this season was one of the worst, and what score was it? 17? It was a very, very low scoring game. Do I have it in front of me? I did. Yeah, here we go. 17-9. 9 points against one of the league's worst passing defenses. If you want the exact number, they were 17th in total defense.
Plus, they still had a chance to sneak into the playoffs there in the last few weeks.
And they were
of
also
the
on a
season,
skid
and
for
they blew it.
giving up passing yards as well during that time. So
I think Atlanta might be a better spot for Fields to land because Atlanta has a good running game.
they do.
And they could make their offense more like the Ravens offense.
Raheem Morris would have to be interested in Justin Fields, which if you have the opportunity to go from Desmond Ridder or to one or draft a quarterback or go get Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, he's not as mobile as he once was, but maybe add him to the stockpile of potential guys you go out and get. Maybe that'll work. Yeah. Justin Fields, third-round pick.
What kind of money do you think Russell Wilson's going to be able to command going forward?
That's a great question.
I mean, don't you have to pick up something from his contract, or can they release him? I don't think.
Well, now what we're hearing is that Sean Payton has ruled out bringing him back.
Oh, really?
On a restructured deal.
Huh.
I feel bad for Russell Wilson.
So do I.
Just get booted, and all of a sudden we're like, yeah, no, we'll take you back now.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I'm going to go to my grave. Until Justin Fields gets traded, third-round pick. Still believe it.
Yeah.
The numbers don't lie. Same thing with Brock Purdy versus Jimmy Garoppolo in the first 27 games where I said numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. Justin Fields, he's a great YouTube highlight reel. Good for him. He gets clicks. He gets engagement. I will say this, though. I believe it was the end of the year press conference, and we covered this on the show. His personality, the way he carries himself, very nice guy.
Yeah.
He's a very, very mature guy.
Very mature guy. Speaks well. Top character type guy, I think.
And this is the second year in a row he had to talk about his job security.
Yeah,
which
right.
For a young
he said,
quarterback
you know what?
like that,
he made some mistakes in talking about that, but he owned up to them. He said, you know what? That was not the right thing to say. If there's problems with the team, put it all on me.
Right.
It's all on me.
Because he had the quote early on in the season how the coaches were giving him too much information.
Yeah,
he was thinking too much.
Yeah.
And then he goes out in the next game against Kansas City and plays horrible. You know, it happens. You're playing against Kansas City.
He did play better after that, though.
He had a couple games. There was one against Denver. I think
then he got hurt. Then when he came back, he played okay. But then at the end, they didn't do so well.
He went back to Justin Fields, pre-injury.
1.0.
Yeah, wasn't very good. All right, we're going to take a break, but coming up, a former NFL scout rates Caleb Williams, who a lot of people are expecting go number one, as a fourth-round prospect. And also, the Patriots, they're coming up with a new docuseries called The Dynasty. The first two episodes were released today. But Brady, there was a quote released by The Athletic saying that him and Bill Belichick, Brady and Belichick, the falling out, the truth behind it. We'll talk about that right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It is great to have you here on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. So, former NFL scout Daniel Kelly, who graded Brock Purdy last season as a round one quarterback, ranks Caleb Williams in this upcoming draft as a fourth-round prospect. Now, he, in a quote that he released, he absolutely goes to town on Caleb Williams. He says, and I quote, He's He's much closer to Johnny Manziel than Patrick Mahomes on the spectrum. I mean, that with respect and sensitivity, but that's what I would say if I was a scout sitting in the pre-draft meetings. He continues by saying, we witnessed Caleb Williams having a mental breakdown right before our eyes, crying uncontrollably in his mother's arms. To me, as a former NFL scout, he's the most mentally fragile player I've ever evaluated, quarterback or otherwise. He has little experience dealing with adversity, even by his own admission. And then he gives a quote that Caleb Williams said, talking about 75. They went 7-5 with no playoff hopes. The most fragile player he's ever evaluated. That is incredibly rough for a guy that hasn't even entered the NFL yet. I want to know.
Daniel Kelly. I never heard of him.
I believe he's a former.
I mean, maybe
Jets
he flipped
NFL
a coin
scout
on the quarterbacks and said, maybe Brock Purdy ought to be considered a first rounder. Who would ever remember it? And unless Brock Purdy actually came out and played great, like he's done, and probably should have been higher than Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft, right?
Well, to answer your question, he spent 4 years as the scout for the New York Jets.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that says a lot.
So I want to know, should the teams like, Washington or Chicago, should they be concerned about drafting Caleb Williams? Because this is not the first time in, recent memory that some of these former and current NFL scouts, anonymously or just outright, are voicing their concerns about, how far Caleb Williams can go entering the NFL.
Are there more scouts and more talent evaluators saying that Caleb Williams might not be what everyone thinks?
I've seen and heard a couple so far that are saying that he's not as great as people are saying.
Oh, yeah?
So do you think teams should be concerned with how much negativity is surrounding him at this current moment?
He's wearing number 13. That's not a very lucky number.
What's the number he's given?
Yeah. Brock Purdy had 13 on, too. He just lost the Super Bowl.
But he made it to the Super Bowl.
He did make it, yeah. That's true. I think that Caleb Williams has some great stats as a college player. I think he has over 10,000 passing yards in college. He has some stats that look amazing. But USC has not been the team that has been talked about or has had the kinds of success in recent years that some others have. And they've fallen in stature as a team. I think that the kinds of pressure that you encounter when you're one of the top teams like Alabama or Michigan or Washington, right? That's where you separate the men from the boys, and with the players that can excel in that environment. And USC really hasn't had that kind of environment. They haven't played in that kind of environment in recent years. I'm not sure why. I mean, they used to be a dominant team. They used to be ranked right up there, play for the national championship every once in a while, but they're not for quite a long time. So, coming out of that school, and as you say, he is a little mentally fragile. That may be something that teams ought to consider. But it doesn't look like they are, because there's all this talk of Justin Fields being traded and the Bears picking Caleb Williams number 1.
Yeah. Well, first of all, like you said, some of the numbers that Caleb Williams has,
he's got great numbers.
His touchdown to interception ratio is 93-14. That's incredible. Yeah. But what we saw this season was a lot fewer touchdowns. And he had the same amount of interceptions as he did last season.
Well, they didn't make it. They didn't have any hope. The record was 7-5,
8-5 to end the year. But at the current moment, when Caleb Williams said that quote, they were 7-5. But yeah, when you have 12 fewer touchdowns and you also have nearly 1,000 fewer yards, the touchdown interception ratio obviously does decrease, and you don't see all the finesse and prowess that Caleb Williams, that people are projecting on Caleb Williams to have. Caleb Williams in his career, though, does not do well against top-tier opponents, against top 5 teams. Would you believe that he has a losing winning percentage?
Yeah. Now, I'm not that surprised, because USC
doesn't play top-tier teams like Alabama, Georgia.
Yeah, they don't. They have not had the kind of talent that have kept them up there in the rankings. They weren't a ranked team this year, were they?
No.
Yeah. So, they played against Colorado State, right?
Colorado Deion's team, Colorado straight up. They nearly choked that game. We remember Colorado had a massive comeback late in the game and nearly lost. against a team that had no offensive line. Shadur Sanders, every time he stepped back, was about to get killed in the pocket. And they somehow, and I believe there was a few turnovers that Colorado had that really just kept them out of the game early, and then they mounted an incredible comeback. And you get this feeling, and I've mentioned this to you before, this word of generational talent gets moved around and put on players so often. We talk about Trevor Lawrence, generational talent. No, he's not. No, he's not. Now, some players turn into generational talents when they hit the NFL. Brady, Mahomes. Mahomes, by the way, I believe he had a losing record at Texas Tech. And Texas Tech is now one of the big.
But he was highly touted when he was drafted. Mahomes.
The Chiefs moved up to get him.
Yeah, a smart move, man.
But some, like for instance, a couple people, and Mitch Trubisky, I believe he was right up there. Deshaun Watson obviously was right up there, winning with Clemson in the national championship. But Mahomes wasn't one of these like, okay, let's see, could he go number one? Yeah, why not? He might be able to. Mahomes wasn't that type of a guy. And now all of a sudden we're hearing, oh yeah, Caleb Williams. We'll never see another quarterback like this in 10 years. We hear the same thing about Trevor Lawrence. We hear these generational talents get moved around so often that what is a generational talent now? Is it a guy who's really good in college? Who's the best quarterback in college for a time in a place?
Well, what's the standard that you would measure generational talent against? Tom Brady.
Well,
Patrick Mahomes. Those are generational talents.
Those are generational talents in the NFL. Tom Brady was not a generational talent in college.
Not at all.
Right, but in the NFL, he became it. If we're talking about a guy and we're putting the label on him, he's a generational talent in college. He has to be the top. He has to be the best player without question for however long he's in college for.
Now, Tom Brady might have been a generational talent in college if they'd let him play.
Maybe.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't play until his junior year, and then in his senior year they were. Drew Henson was in there. They were alternating them. Henson would start out and get him way behind, and then Brady would come in and catch up. Yeah. So Brady didn't get a fair shake in college and get the reps that he should have gotten. I don't think, given how he turned out in the NFL. Right? If they'd known that he was going to be like that, they would have started him every game from his freshman year.
Absolutely.
And then he might have had generational talent to stats as a college player. Who knows?
Very, very well might have. In my mind, is Caleb Williams going to be a bust? Probably not. But this quote, and Daniel Kelly does bring up a couple of good points. When he faces adversity, he breaks down as just a human being. He doesn't have the motor, the drive, okay, we'll get him next time. He breaks down.
Oh, really? He was crying in his mother's arms?
He cried in his mother's arms after a crushing loss. That's when we talked about it last time, when Colin Cowherd said that, his camp, he heard from the camp that reportedly he didn't want to be, he did not want to go to Chicago. I said it was a character issue. And I still believe that. Because if you don't have the mental toughness, whether it be you got pampered early on, you were always, you had yes men around you all the time, or you just think so highly of yourself. And that's where I can sort of see the comparison with Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel came into the, he was in college football, slinging the ball around, making crazy plays, and he brought that personality to the NFL, and we looked and we saw how it turned out. Now, I think Caleb Williams is a little bit more mature than Johnny Manziel was.
No, Johnny Manziel had some
drinking
problems, right?
But when it comes to Caleb Williams, we now praise him because he's making, these crazy on-the-run moves, which, hey, they are phenomenal throws, incredibly accurate. But to be called the greatest in college football and to be the no doubt, undisputable number one overall pick in the draft for 2 straight years now, and that goes to your head.
Yeah.
And then this season you regress, and people still think of you as the clear-cut number one overall pick. In my mind, that's going in saying, well, let's take a look at the season. They went from last year where Caleb Williams with 46 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He was phenomenal. He was like, okay, this guy's going to be number one pick in the draft. Then this season, you only have 30 touchdowns and 5 picks. And
that's still pretty good.
And you were 8-5. And we saw you break down. What
was his record the year before?
The year before, they were, just had it up before. 2022, USC's record was 11-3.
Oh, so that's pretty good.
They were 12th in the final standings.
Got it.
So they were technically ranked, but obviously you're
Maybe they lost a lot of players that graduated.
just the complete breakdown. Now the defense, I'll create a little bit of context here. The defense for USC wasn't great this season. Some could say that it was terrible, but that's what I mean by fighting through adversity. And this is also why I say it's a character issue. We heard that reportedly he said he wants a stake in whatever team drafts him. You don't hear about that. You don't hear that with anybody. Where you want a percentage stake of your team
When you're a rookie?
When you're a rookie, you haven't proved yourself in the NFL yet.
That's crazy.
And not only that, if you can't fight through adversity on USC and you don't have the motor and the drive to bounce back from it, and you sort of give in and by the end of it you break down, newsflash, because you're one of the top tier quarterbacks in the NFL, you're going to the worst team in the NFL. So why would you be away from adversity if you're the best quarterback in college, which then you get drafted to the worst NFL team? Guess what? There'll be adversity there too. And when it comes
There's
to
adversity everywhere.
Exactly. And let's say the Bears either trade back or don't draft Caleb Williams. That would be a worse situation for Caleb Williams because you're going to the Commanders, which have an offensive line that Sam Howell got blasted behind. The weapons inconsistent, running game inconsistent, defense just traded away your top two rushers. So your defense is going to regress. Your offensive line needs serious improvement. Running game, I think it's not all that great. You have Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel, but we're not talking about any of the top tier receivers. Terry McLaurin is pretty much up there, but we aren't talking about a tier of Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, or Puka Nacua. We're not talking about those types of players. Terry McLaurin's a really good receiver.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't put him in your top 5. Might fringe top 10 receiver in the league.
He's good. I think he's good.
So you're gonna you're gonna face adversity. And let's just say, just for the sake of this argument, let's say the Commanders pass on you. Let's say the Commanders shock the world and draft Jaden Daniels as the first quarterback off the board. So then the Patriots would draft Caleb Williams most likely. The Patriots have arguably the worst receiving core in the NFL. The offensive line, which improved late, was still very bad. It was one of the worst in the NFL grade-wise. Tight ends, Hunter Henry might be gone. Running game, you only have Ramondre Stevenson right now. The offense is not great. It's not pretty.
Do you think Zeke will get another job?
I think the Patriots should seriously consider re-signing Zeke. But we're
agree.
talking about no matter where you go, because you're the best quarterback in college, you're going to be on one of the worst teams in the NFL.
So who do you think Daniel Kelly thinks is the best quarterback? Did he say?
He does not say who he thinks the best quarterback is in this
Well, he picked
article.
Brock Purdy is number 1.
Well, no, he says a first-round quarterback. He
Okay,
didn't
well,
say
that's in
number
the
1.
top 32.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
who does
he
he
was
think?
right.
Who does he think the best one is? I wonder. That'd be interesting to know.
I would also be curious who he thinks is the best quarterback in this draft. It probably, for me, it's Jaden Daniels. Outside of Caleb Williams, because I do think Caleb Williams, if we're talking about just pure talent, whether it still needs a lot of work or not, refinement, he does have probably the highest ceiling out of any of these quarterbacks. But he also talks about how the amount of pressure on Caleb Williams is incredible. Every practice, you're going to be surrounded by media people. Every throw, people are going to be nitpicking at every single throw. Oh, it was a little bit too far to the left. Oh, he threw it too high on one pass out of the 30 he threw in this portion of practice. While I think a 4th round grade for Caleb Williams is a bit much, he does make good points with the fact that, you know, when his team isn't doing well and they lose games, he breaks down. That's not good for scouts that are going to be drafting high who their teams aren't very good. Make good points. I'll agree with them with that, but the 4th round grade, I don't agree with whatsoever. Let's talk about this topic now. So there was a lot of questions about who is more responsible for the dynasty of the New England Patriots from 2001 all the way to 2019 when it officially ended. And everybody thought, including you thought, that Brady had the opportunity to go back to the Patriots back in 2020, in the offseason of 2020. But as it turns out, that's not the case. In a quote from this docuseries, which there'll be 2 episodes, I believe if I read it correctly, there'll be 2 episodes every Friday for the next 5 weeks. Someone, I forgot who it was exactly, so I can't give proper attribution to, but Tom Brady said, based in that offseason, he had a very interesting quote. This is what he said when talking about his move from off the Patriots to Tampa. He said, "Me and Coach Belichick, we did what we loved and competed for 20 years together. But I wasn't going to sign another contract in New England, even if I wanted to play until I was 50. Based on how things had gone, I wasn't going to sign up for more of it." That is a very honest Tom Brady, which we have never seen, or we've seen it here and there. A lot from Giselle, actually. She had what she thought about. He can't throw and catch it. I forgot what season that was.
That was in the Super Bowl against the...
was it the Eagles?
No, against the Giants.
Okay,
Against the Giants. One of them against the Giants.
So, this is a very honest Tom Brady. I want to know, are you surprised that Brady would be so open about how rough things sounded?
Well, I'd like to hear all of his quote. I mean, this may be taken a little out of context. I don't know. We'll be watching the Dynasty documentary starting tonight. After we're done with the show, we're going to go watch it. So we'll see. We'll be talking about it going forward because it's going to be 10 segments. So there'll be a lot there to digest and to watch, and you'll see Brady going from the beginning to the end of his career at New England, and Belichick, there with him over the 20-year period, and I think it will be very interesting. I'm looking forward to it, and I do think that when you play together on a team for 20 years, there's going to be some ups and downs, and I do think at the end of his career. With the Patriots, it was obvious that they weren't investing in the offense the way he wanted. And the offense in 2019 was not very good. It really was not that good. They counted on the defense. They won the first 8 games of the season, mostly because the defense didn't allow hardly any points. But then they kind of fell apart. They were not good in the latter part of the season, and they lost their first playoff game. And that was the end. And I do think the Patriots wanted him back. They did want him back. In fact, he went to sit down with Belichick, and they asked him, what does it take to bring you back? And that's when Brady said, "I don't want to come back." So it was Brady that wanted to leave. It wasn't the Patriots that didn't want him.
Well, what Brady was looking for was contractual security. He won, and this is widely reported, he won 2 years, $50 million to stay with the Patriots. Once again, undervaluing himself for the rest of the team's sake. Belichick would not secure him for 2 more years. He kept doing these 1-year deals with New England because Belichick, as people have said, and as Belichick has done, he'd rather be 1 year early than 1 year late. He tried to get off Brady in 2017 after drafting Jimmy G in 2014 in, I believe, the 2nd round. And Brady went up to Kraft and said, "I'm not leaving. So it's either Belichick or it's me." And that time, Robert Kraft chose Brady and decided, you know what, Bill, you got to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, which obviously unwillingly Belichick did because Jimmy G was his guy. Belichick has failed Brady. I'm gonna say this. Failed Brady, failed the Patriots since basically that moment on. Because what Belichick did was...
I mean, they won 2 more Super Bowls after that.
How did they win it, though?
No, maybe one. They won in 18.
They won 18. No. Based on that point, right, there was one Super Bowl win after Belichick tried to trade Brady away in 2017. They went to 2.
No, but after they got rid of Garoppolo,
they went to 2.
And they won 1.
Because they lost. The Eagles won that year. Remember, when Brady threw
they won against the Rams.
505 yards. I want to put a little context on the 2019 season. Correct. They did win 8 straight games, and they did have the Defensive Player of the Year in Stephon Gilmore. But they played horrible teams in those 8 games. They played Atlanta, which they lost to. They played Detroit, who they lost to. That's Matt Patricia, by the way, that they lost to. You played Green Bay. I think that was a pretty good win, I would say. You played the Jets, the Vikings, the Cowboys. You got shellacked by the Cowboys. The Bills and the Bears. Oh, I'm sorry. That's my fault. That is incorrect. I was on the Eagles of 2019. That's my fault. In 2019, the Patriots played. I know they played the Jets once. They played the Dolphins, killed them. They won 8 straight games. So they beat the Steelers, and that was. I don't think Big Ben had a very good year.
That was opening night. They looked great.
Right, 33-3. Then you shut out Miami, 43-0. Then you play the Jets. That was with Sam Darnold seeing ghosts.
We went to that game.
We
were
went,
at that game.
It was that one or the second one. I forgot which one we went to.
We went to the first Jets game in Foxborough.
Yeah, you are correct. Then you played the Bills, nearly lost to them. That was Josh Allen that was like the coming up of Josh Allen, and people were saying, is this the year the Bills passed the Patriots for the AFC East crown, which they didn't do. Then you beat the Giants, you beat the Commanders, you beat the Jets again, 33-0. Then you beat the Browns, who the Browns historically were garbage for the large part of the year. And then Week 9 came, and there was the downfall of what we were going to be seeing moving forward.
Fell apart in that game.
The defense and stopping the run became basically non-existent from that point on. Lamar Jackson exposed the defense that had a very difficult time stopping the run, and that led to barely beating the Eagles, barely beating the Cowboys. You had a lot of these close games. You got screwed over in the Kansas City game. They called, I forgot who it was. It might have been Jacoby Myers and N'Keal Harry. The foot was out of bounds that they called, but if you look at the replay, it wasn't out of bounds.
Right.
You lost by 7 in that game. You beat the Bengals, you beat the Bills again, and then you lose, I believe, you lose to Miami. That was not the Miami Miracle, I don't think. You lost 24-27. I don't think we saw that game.
No, that wasn't that.
I don't think we saw it. And then you go up against Derrick Henry and he rushes for over 200 yards against your team. You can't do anything. And then the last throw you ever had with New England was a pick 6. So the drafting just got progressively worse.
It's interesting how Brady's last game of the Patriots was a stinker, right? And he went out with his last play, a pick 6.
Yeah.
And Belichick's last game of the Patriots is a stinker too. That snow game, they couldn't do anything. Could not do a thing. It was hard to watch.
You lost to Trevor Siemian.
They lost to Trevor Siemian and the Jets, who you'd beaten 15 times in a row before that. And that's the way he went out as a Patriots coach. It's odd that both those guys Brady and Belichick went out on such low notes after all of their success.
I find it shocking, genuinely shocking, that Brady would say that he would never sign another contract, even if he said he was playing till 50.
Yeah, well, they're trying to hype the documentary too. That's part of it.
I mean, what we heard was that, Brady was done with Belichick. We heard that before this even came out.
We've heard that several times. We'll hear it some more tonight when we watch the documentary.
Well, no, this time we're not going to, because it's going to be the early years. We won't hear Brady bashing.
Yeah, well,
because
we'll see over 10.
Was it 5 weeks
segments? We're going to hear a lot.
Yeah. So I'm the fact that Brady, I think I heard Belichick was very not as open as Kraft was, as Brady was.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's Belichick. He's a private person. He doesn't like to disclose how he feels about things.
Do
you think that the Patriots dynasty is more about Brady or more about Belichick?
Brady, 10,000%. Hands down, flip it around, send it, airmail it, bring it back, boomerang it around. Brady, 100%. And post-Brady proved that. 1,000% post-Brady proved that. Because he went out and won a Super Bowl in his first year. Belichick resorted to drafting 3 guards and 2 kickers before drafting a credible wide receiver. Think about it. I genuinely feel bad for Cam Newton when he was on the Patriots. His receiver core was garbage. I looked at it recently, and I'm going to bring it up now. Was garbage. Jacoby Myers, respectable receiver. I wish he was still on the Patriots now. Then the next highest receiver was Damiere Byrd. James White was the 3rd highest receiver on the team. N'Keal Harry. He played 9 games. This is crazy. Julian Edelman, who broke his leg, or there was some weird,
and he got hurt.
He played 6 games. He had more yards than N'Keal Harry, who played 14 games and started 9. Started 1 game, he had played 6. Julian Edelman did, had more yards than N'Keal Harry. Oh, this is a great one. Ryan Izzo, remember him, the tight end, and also was what's his name? Asiasi. I forgot his first. Devin Asiasi. What a great pick that was.
Yeah. Trying
to replace Gronk, and you replace him with Devin Asiasi and Ryan Izzo. It was great. You also had Damian Harris, who didn't have a horrible year. Led the team in rushing, but that was Cam Newton was a runner that year. He had 12 rushing touchdowns. I think he had the 3rd or 4th most rushing touchdowns in the entire NFL that season. He ran as much as Damian Harris did in the same amount of attempts. That 2020 Patriots team, That was just
2019.
I'm talking about 2020 with Cam Newton.
Oh, with Cam Newton, right.
That team was just abysmal. Absolutely abysmal. The 2018 team,
They won 8 games, I think, didn't they?
they went 7-9.
7-9.
That was the
That was
first
before
losing record.
Before they went to the 17-game schedule.
Correct. That was the first losing record in since Brady got there. That was the first losing record the Patriots have ever had. It ended in Brady's first year out of the team.
Yeah. Well.
You think it's more Belichick, don't you?
No, I think that definitely Brady was the catalyst, but it is a team sport, and Belichick had a lot to do with how the defense was coached and played, and he was the head coach. So, and he was smart enough to draft Tom Brady when nobody else would, and he kept him for 20 years. He started him in the first Super Bowl when most people were saying you ought to go with Bledsoe because he was healthy and he'd won the AFC Championship game, but he went back to Brady, and a lot of controversy about that, and the Patriots won that Super Bowl. So I'd say there was some big decisions made along the way that Belichick had a say in and call the shots that contributed to the Patriots having the dynasty. So I do think without Tom Brady, probably wouldn't have happened, all that winning over 20 seasons. But having Belichick and Brady together was money.
I don't think anyone's going to argue them together. That was the best
There was synergy
duo.
there. The
Right.
1 and 1 equaled more than 2.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that Belichick got in his own way, thinking he could do it on his own rather than I need Brady here for our success together. And that showed in 2017 when you tried to trade the greatest quarterback of all time, who that year prior won the Super Bowl on a 25-point comeback. And the next year, let's get off of him. Let's trade him away. Are you kidding me? Then he goes out and goes to 3 Super Bowls, wins 2.
It was bad judgment on Belichick's part to think that Brady was too old. He wasn't.
But
how many players were... Brady was in his late 30s then. Most players are done. They haven't seen a quarterback get into his 40s and play like Brady did ever. It never happened. So most coaches are going to think, he's past his prime. And I'm sure he did show some, he did have a little bit of a drop off there. But the guy played fantastic for till he was 45 years old, and that ain't going to happen again. I don't think in my lifetime. Well, I hope I see it, but I don't think I will.
Well, that season in 2017, he threw for 4,500 yards, which led the league, and had 32 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Was that 4-to-1 ratio?
Yeah, and had the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history.
That was the year prior. 2017 was the Eagles collapse, which
and the year
Belichick
the year
decision.
After. Okay, right.
Benching Malcolm Butler, who played 98% of your
Brady.
snaps.
That was something that upset Brady.
I could understand it. And we still don't know exactly what happened. The latest thing that we heard was that him and Matt Patricia, they got into it or something like that. Yeah, and they decided to discipline him in the Super Bowl.
I could see benching him for maybe the first quarter. But the whole game, when he played 98% of the snaps,
Belichick did that with J.C. Jackson this season.
Yeah.
it was J.C. Jackson and Jack Jones as well.
Right. Well, Jack Jones, they let him go.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that was it the Colts game? I forgot which game it was. I think it was the Colts game where they didn't play the first quarter or the first half. They didn't start the game.
No, they didn't take.
Jack Jones didn't go. I don't think.
No, Jack Jones went, but J.C. Jackson didn't.
Okay, it was one of them, and then
J.C. Jackson did not make the trip.
Okay, but yeah, you disciplined him or Jack Jones at least for the first quarter. You didn't start him. You didn't let him play in the first quarter.
Yeah. Then they dropped him after that game. I think, right?
And then I think on his first game with the Raiders, he has a beautiful pick six interception.
He had
jumped
2,
the screen.
I think.
Not
in one game, but he had 2 with the Raiders.
I believe. I think one was against Kansas City. I might be remembering that wrong.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Because that game, Mahomes and that offense, that was one of the weirdest games we saw this season. I'm very excited for this because I saw well, I forgot, it was the man in the arena, Tom Brady, narrating his 10 Super Bowls that he was in. That was a great series, and now we're seeing the downfall of the dynasty from start to finish. The growing, the beautiful and perfect, to the eventual decay and destruction of probably the best dynasty in sports.
I find it hard to call it destruction when they won it in 18. 19 was a down year, and he left after that.
Well, I
wouldn't say that.
I guarantee you, based on how, we're going to see exactly
dynasty didn't end
why.
when Brady was there.
Correct.
Yeah.
In 2020, it ended because Brady was gone.
Right.
But and then people could argue, what if Mac Jones won a Super Bowl in like 2022? Would the dynasty continue? Or would that be a new opening?
I think it's
because
a new opening.
It was like a 4-year span, so it wasn't like...
I would say it'd be a new opening.
I would probably agree with you there.
Most of the players had gone from those Super Bowl teams by then.
Right. I think, Brady...
Andrews,
Matt Slater, and I think that...
maybe Jonathan Jones.
If we're talking about 2022, then Devin McCourty...
Yeah, he was still there.
He was still there. So you would have, 3 or 4 players out of 53.
Yeah, so not many.
And I guarantee you, I'm going to be very, very fascinated. Probably episodes 7, 8, 9, 10, or maybe just 8, 9. Maybe just 10 we'll see this. Because this is the very, very end. I'm going to be fascinated to see the series, and I'm sure a lot of Patriots fans are saying what exactly went wrong. But that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Harvey Hour. Tuesday, it's going to be fun. We're talking basketball. NBA All-Star Weekend is basically, I think, today or tomorrow. It opens up. I'm sure we'll say something about it. Sure, more NFL news is coming out. NFL trades. Free agency opening up soon. Mac Jones, we talked about it, that they could be returning with them, and now all of a sudden he's a trade candidate potentially. There's a bunch of stuff going on. That is a great question. Who would trade for Justin Fields, though? Who knows? Who knows?
I think the
Zach
Steelers.
Wilson, too. Yeah, who knows? But yeah, we'll talk about a bunch of that stuff on Tuesday. But for this episode of Harvey Hour, my name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We're the hosts of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Night, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.